Okay. Okay, it seems to be working. I remembered how to do this. This is a weird angle on the yacht. Hello. Let's see. I just got a funny text from someone who's going to be watching this stupid show. Hi. It's me, quarantined in the yacht. What's going on? How are you? My name's Chris, and this is weird, right? Weird. We're all, to varying degrees, I suppose, completely sheltering in place, as it were. Let's take a look at what Los Angeles looks like. There's Los Angeles out of the window. All right. Looking pretty good, LA. Hanging in there, I guess. I have like a mustache and a goatee, kind of, because I'm bored. And yeah, let's just, talk about football. We'll talk about whatever. I hope everybody's doing okay. I have no idea how many people will show up to this little event here, but I'm just hoping to provide a little companionship while you are having to hang out alone. At some point, we'll talk football. We'll talk about all the free agent moves and stuff that happened. That'll be fun. Even if you're watching this after the fact and you aren't getting live companionship, hopefully the process of hearing someone else talk to you is good. And also, I'll talk about football as well. Maybe I'll take a few questions as we go. You can see I put the guitar right there. There it is. It's good. It's going to be there. It's good. Fine form. Fine fiddle. Zach says, you haven't had corporate overlords for a few years now. Yeah, like 5 years now. How do you normally live without going to an office? It's actually, I prefer it. This is less of an imposition on my lifestyle than almost anybody you know, because I, during the season, will spend 4, 5, 6 days without leaving the apartment. The yacht, sorry. But, of course, it's nice to be able to go have dinner with somebody, and that's not. I hope everybody's not congregating. I hope that's what my message here for you, generally speaking, is. Please don't congregate. Be with yourself or the people that you live with, and that's it. So yeah, man. Josh says, how are my parents in Massachusetts? My parents are actually in Florida, but thank you for asking. They're fine. They say they're going to come participate in this, or I don't know, participate, but at least watch. They might be watching me right now. They're fine. They're hanging in. They're locked down. I yell at them every so often to stay locked down, but they seem to be doing a pretty good job. They're in Vero Beach, Florida for the winter. I'm in Los Angeles, Eric. Cousin Josh says, Cousin Josh also well. Talked to him on the phone yesterday for a good long time. I guess the only frustration Cousin Josh has is that he has to work from home, and a lot of the other people who work for his company are working from home and not working that hard, and he is crushed. His particular division is very, very active no matter what. So I don't think it's any kind of break for him. And if you follow him on Instagram, you'll see his workouts. He's like in the very early morning, he's going to like some park where there's no people and doing chin-ups, I guess. DJ Jim says, are you going to bring back the Juggernaut Pod to fill some free time, discuss current events? Let's consider this the Juggernaut Pod. It was a different time of my life. I wish more people had listened when it was happening, as does Dave Piper. We both wish that. But it was hard. It was hard to do those interviews. Hard meaning a challenge, meaning a lot of work, meaning I had to prep. I had to focus. I had to figure out what I wanted to ask. I had to really stuff that I don't feel like I have in me right now. It was good for that particular time in my life. We did 50 episodes. If people want to find them there at juggernautpod.com, it goes back 3 or 4 years now. It was fun, but I don't. This is it. This is the equivalent now. Now we have a YouTube channel, so now this is it. Let's see. Eric quoting himself to his wife. Hey, honey, you know that fantasy football podcast I listened to that tweeted 1,000 emojis that had players with nicknames only people that listen to the podcast would know? Gonna watch them on YouTube right now, if that's cool. were people tuned into the emoji explosion there a few nights ago? That was pretty funny. I got a few. I got to try to remember a few of them. The Jim McCormick one was awesome. The Cousin Josh one was awesome. Baby Horse Giraffe was pretty great. There were a lot of very, very fun ones. Josh says, should I watch The Tiger King and thoughts on Love is Blind? I'm assuming you're anticipating that I pass that on to other people watching this because I'm not watching those things. I don't know what they are. Chris says, what's the new book? The new book, which, in light of current events, I'm not sure is this relevant, maybe. But hey, I wrote it before this all happened. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the status of the new book, but the new book is about a guy who lives in Los Angeles, but quits his job and quits the internet, gets rid of his phone and goes to Lake Tahoe and becomes a bartender and tries to figure stuff out. Sort of a 30-year-old, so about my age, who's trying to figure things out. A lot less gunplay than Tulsa. I'll put it that way. Tulsa is the one that now feels like it's fairly, if anybody's read Tulsa, it feels like it's fairly prescient. Things we can, Mystery Science Theater, Dave says, suggestions for bad, good movies to watch with friends on Zoom conference. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of bad movies. All right, so why don't I'll start talking, because there's 50 people in here. I don't know if we're going to get any more than that. Who cares? It's fun to be hanging out with 50 people. Let's talk, some of you may have listened to the podcast that we did on Wednesday with Scott Pianeski. Some may not have. Shall we run down some of the big signings, big free agent news, all that stuff? It's just me talking, but hey, I can give my opinions on some of this stuff, and I'll work in some comments and some thoughts. And we've had a couple moves since then that we're going to talk about on next week's show with Jeff Erickson, but I can talk about them now too, give you a little bit of a sneak preview. So the one that we led off with on the podcast, which is the biggest drunk fantasy trade in NFL history, I think, the Deshaun Watson for David Johnson and a second and a fourth. It's like, the more we all think about it, and I talked about it with Josh on the phone and stuff, it's almost like Bill O'Brien did it on a dare. I love to play the contrarian and say, actually, but in this case, I think DeAndre Hopkins is one of the 5 best receivers in the league, and a commodity that if you're expecting to find one of the 5 best receivers in the league and have him not be a little bit of a diva, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. And of course, in the end, the one place where I can play contrarian is to say none of us know how bad the interpersonal stuff was between Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, right? We don't know. So possibly it's been undersold. Possibly it was out of control. We've certainly been told by former Texan teammates that he was a leader on the team and super supportive and was there all the time and whatever. But it's all third hand, so I accept that there could be something there that we're going to find out that ruins the logic of what this looks like on the football field. Did I just call it a football field? That's not good. Let's have some Possum water vodka and wash my mouth out for calling it a football field. But just from a pure on-the-field kind of trade, it's so deliriously wrong and insane, and especially in light of Todd Gurley getting cut and being signed for $5 million, it's, you just say, couldn't you just have kept Hopkins and signed Gurley and had essentially the same sort of running back, probably a better one if he's healthy, but with similar injury issues and not really knowing, and the uncertainty around a potentially very good running back, but a running back who we know has questions at least about health, and still have had DeAndre Hopkins. It's just, it all boggles, and I don't even think we can talk about the Texans passing game yet, because it's very clear they're not done. You can't go into a season where you claim to have Super Bowl aspirations and have Will Fuller be your number 1 receiver. Like, that's not tenable. Not that Fuller can't play pretty well as a number 2 when he's healthy, but my God, if we're going to be worried about David Johnson, we should really be worried about Will Fuller. So I'll just reserve judgment on what this really means for Deshaun Watson. I can't imagine it's a good thing, but they're going to have a rookie receiver or a trade or another. There's going to be someone else in that receiving core. there's nothing to be said about David Johnson because he barely played last year. When he did play, it didn't look all that good. He looked slow. It's hard to know whether slow equals injured. I don't think there are going to be a lot of people out there suggesting that David Johnson, for fantasy purposes, is going to be a top 3-round pick. I think he's going to be a flyer, and that could change over the course of the summer. But we're talking about a long time since he's been good. And then the question of what happens in Arizona, and does having one of the best receivers in the game change Kyler Murray's outlook? I think yes. I think there's going to be a tendency to overthink whether Hopkins fits the system. Blah 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 blah. Don't worry, because what's great about DeAndre Hopkins is he doesn't really need to be that open to make a great catch. He's got unbelievable hands and body control, and he's a good route runner. Would I put him up there as like one of the 8 best route runners in the league? I don't have him ranked, but he's really good. He's really good. He's open a lot. Like, he's not a super fast guy. He's not an unbelievably quick guy, and he's not a huge guy. He's a fantastic player, and it helps Kyler Murray to have another good player. I think he was always going to take a jump in year 2 as well. I think we're at the point, as we said in the podcast with Scott, that Kyler Murray's got a chance to be overrated for fantasy purposes, and to be the QB2 or the QB3 is probably too much for me. But it helps, and it's more defensible than it was when he had no weapons. Christian Kirk, we talked on the podcast about that as well. It's too easy to say, oh, terrible for Christian Kirk, as though we've never seen 2 receivers from the same team be very, very good on a weekly basis for fantasy. Of course we have. That's the league now. If you find the team for whom that is true, you just bask in the Diggs and Thielen from 2 years ago, or you bask in the Evans and Godwin from last year. If you find the right team that's going to explode offensively, you want both guys. So I think it's a crutch argument to say for sure what Christian Kirk does as a result of Hopkins. It does probably take 150 target season off the table for Christian Kirk, but I'll be happy if it's 110 and he has 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I'm willing to draft Christian Kirk still, as far as what we know now. Overall, crazy. I saw someone ask a question about Kenyon Drake. I certainly loved him for a long time, had him as the number 1 flag player 2 years ago. He delivered some numbers, but it wasn't a good enough ride for me to take credit for that. It was awful, and it was a bunch of big plays, and it didn't feel good as a ride. So I take 0 credit for that call 2 years ago. And then last year, we were all down on him in Miami, and he goes to Arizona, and he has an unbelievable 6 weeks, maybe less. I think it was about that. I think, first of all, it's not a sure thing that Drake is on the team because he's a restricted free agent, but he's probably going to be on the team. And it's a good situation for him. I think overall, I'll just say I think an offense that should be on the rise, an offense that shouldn't limit him in any way. To expect kind of production that he got this past year would be wrong, because that team was kind of held together by a bailing wire, and Murray himself was struggling a fair amount in a way that I don't think he will. And they didn't really have a lot of receiving weapons especially when Kirk was not healthy. I mean, Fitzgerald was there and will still be there. And I think Kenyon Drake is a hard sell as a 1st-round pick. I don't think he's that great, but I don't think he's a schlub. And I'll say, I don't have ranks yet. We're going to do them after the draft. But if you told me that Kenyon Drake should be the number 24 overall player in fantasy, I'd go, well, maybe that's a little high. It could go south, but I don't see a ton of unbelievably safe running backs that if you had that opinion, you're like, good player, feel like it could work out, I would be fine with it. So I'm going to answer some questions now. I'll go through more stuff as we go. That has happened to this point, but that's the big one. That's the one that you could spend just so long talking about, because it is wild that it happened. So let's see. Flu Dog says, favorite movie of 2020 so far? Have I seen one? I don't think I've seen one. Horse Ray Donovan was the best, says 10 KV. I was impressed by the emojis. Let's see. Mike says, did you lose a bet to Josh to get you to grow that lip sweater? How's it looking? The problem is that the facial hair grows in so light, it's so blonde, that I have a little bit of a goatee, but I think I shaved the chin maybe 3 days ago, and I shaved the lip like 5 days ago, so it's not really merging or whatever. It's If I had dark hair, you'd be able to see it, but yeah, it's not great. I like this question from Papa Bear. Papa Bear, I'm going to save the Godwin or Evans question because that'll be the next topic that I do here. I'll do the Brady topic here quickly. Salem says, Reno 911 stash. Oh, yeah. When you're locked up, you got to have a project, right? The Celine says, O'Brien is in a fantasy league that you have to try and lose as many games as possible. I think that's probably true. Burke Willis, a friend of mine from 20 years ago, maybe more Burke Willis, probably more like 25. It's good to see that familiar pallor again. Thank you, Burke. When I was the editor at the school newspaper for the MBA program, and we all were coming up with superhero names, Burke decided that I was very white as opposed to Perry White, which was very funny. And I shut it down because it wasn't funny at all, Burke, you jerk. But Burke is a good dude. Still live in Houston, do you, Burke? I hope you're well. Don't jump, says someone. I'm not gonna. BD says Drake signed the tender. Indeed, he did sign the tender, but I think if he signed the tender, then yeah. So he's good. He's there. You're right, BD. He signed his tag, yeah. It was the transition tag. It wasn't a tender, you're right. He did sign the tag, though. Thanks, guys, for clearing that up. Steve says the 2020 season will not happen. True or false? I mean, I have no idea. To say, well, my instinct at this point is that it would be hard for everybody to live like this, to feel like this was living for that long, for another, I mean, that's 6 months, right? But never, all I can say is I hope. I hope we're all overreacting. I hope we all look back and all the trolls who think we're all being so stupid, who are out licking toilet seats, are right. And everybody's fine, and we all look like jerks. I would be so happy to look like the biggest jerk in the world. That would be fantastic, if only. So, but yeah, we don't know. I mean, I would be, what does it matter what I say now? My instinct is yes, but what does it matter what I say now, right? Feeney says, I was being sarcastic. I know, Feeney. That's cool, man. Zach says, football thoughts on the Pats' current quarterback situation, personal, non-football thoughts on Brady leaving New England. All right, so let's do a little Brady talk, which again, if you've caught up with the podcast already, I'm not sure I have a ton of different thoughts to give, but maybe some people who are watching this video after the fact won't have heard the podcast. I have a podcast, harrisfootball.com. We're doing it once a week now. I think you'd like it. It's pretty good. It's a pretty big show. Let me have some Possum water vodka. Hold on. All right, so thoughts on, let's first answer that Godwin Evans question. Let's do the Tampa aspect of it, and then we'll do the Patriots. My feeling on Tampa is, of course, they're a much better team with Tom Brady at quarterback than Jameis Winston. It's not really an issue. It's not really, no one's going to have that debate. The debate that I've had to have with people with FSU in their Twitter handle has been my contention that Jameis Winston is terrible and shouldn't be a starter in the league, and they've been very mad at me and waged a campaign of trolling, and I haven't heard from them since. It's really interesting. I haven't heard from them since Brady signed. I think they probably all, their internet is down. That's what it is. But are they a better team? Of course. Is it great? Is it better for fantasy? I mean, I think I almost have to say, of course we don't really know. Because we don't know these things beforehand, because things happen, because we're not great at judging situations beforehand. But in a vacuum, if you're going to tell me that you go from the wildest west gunslinger who has no remorse, who doesn't care, who will just consistently fling it 30 yards down the field and hell or high water, and if he throws 4 interceptions, he's going to keep throwing, or you have a very professional, the most professional quarterback in the history of the league who is very, very accurate and doesn't turn the ball over nearly as much, and punt is an okay play and is interested in winning the game and less interested in being whatever Jameis Winston is interested in being. I would say the latter sounds like a recipe for fewer 40-point games and fewer, 500 passing yard days and fewer 300 receiving yard days and all that stuff. Like, I think in general, the Buccaneers are so much of a better team, but that offense probably isn't as good. And it doesn't mean that Evans and Godwin won't be draftable for fantasy, because they're very good players, and of course they will. But as I said on the show, they're not going to be first-round picks. And they're going to be more like second, third round picks, and we'll see. And quarterbacks changing teams anyway is always a question, let alone a quarterback who's going to come in and rewrite the playbook. And there's no question that Brady's coming in and going to run his offense. He can't run the Bruce Arians offense, the Dan Fouts offense, the Carson Palmer offense, the young Ben Roethlisberger offense, the Andrew Luck offense, the hell or high water offense is not what Brady's going to run. I don't think his arm is completely shot, but I also don't think that his arm is something you really want the entire game. His deep arm, his deep out arm, or deep in arm, 25 yards down the field on a line is what you want your entire playbook riding on week in, week out. I think that's really not what Brady has ever been, but it's certainly not what he is now. So there's going to be fewer pass attempts, and there's going to be fewer downfield pass attempts, and there's going to be more screen passes, and there's going to be just more of whatever we have thought of the Josh McDaniels offense in New England all this time. That's what that offense is going to be in Tampa, because that's what Brady's going to bring in. And that brings in the question of, does Mike Evans know where to go? I trust Chris Godwin to know where to go more than Mike Evans. I'm not saying Mike Evans is not a smart football player, but he's very much gotten by on physical dominance, speed, size, and not really developed as a great route runner. And I think Godwin's probably a better route runner. But by the same token, there's going to be deep shots, and Mike Evans is a great candidate to get some of those deep shots. And they're both completely fantasy starters. Can I tell you for sure who's better or not? I tend to think it's Evans over Godwin, because I think Evans is a better player than Godwin. And Godwin, while had an unbelievable season, to some degree, sometimes saved himself with some Winston trash that he's not going to get in the future. But I think I could be wrong, because I think Godwin's a really good player. You might say to yourself, yeah, but Godwin's a slot receiver. Julian Edelman's a slot receiver. That's where Brady wants to go. I don't think Godwin really runs the option route, runs the 7-yard, go one way, go the other way, be exactly where you're supposed to be, the way Edelman does, because frankly, nobody runs that. They almost need someone else to run that route. Godwin ran a lot out of the slot last year, but I said this in the show, it felt like he ran a lot of post routes out of the slot. He just ran a lot of deep stuff out of the slot. I don't feel like I have a hugely strong take on which one is better. Brady himself is not, for me, a top 10 quarterback with all these unknowns, but belongs in the top half, and who knows. So that's probably where I am on Tampa. As far as the New England stuff goes, of course, so much of the fantasy implications of this are tied up in who they wind up signing. They got Brian Hoyer, everybody. Woo! Pew, pew, pew! And then Brian Hoyer's agent apparently told everybody he was signed to be the starter for $1 million, because agents always tell the truth. Coaches lie, but agents always tell the truth. And so there's not that much fantasy stuff to talk about yet with New England, because we don't know anything yet. But from a fan perspective, from a Patriot, grew up Patriot fan, been a Patriot fan all this time, literally have a pair of footy pajamas over there in the yacht. Hey, I wish he'd stayed. It would have been more fun to just kind of ride it out, and it might have been frustrating, but they would have been better. I only really care that the team is better in the year that I'm rooting for them. And they would have been better with Brady than they will be with whoever else. Dalton, Cam Newton, I don't know, whoever, Jameis. So I wish they were going to be better than they're going to be. And I said this in the show, given that they're not going to be as good as they could have been, I don't really care who they sign. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, get yourself in a position to win a few games, but find the next guy, because quarterback is the most important position in sports, and you got to have that guy. And so maybe we're all going to be really, really surprised, and Jarrett Stidham is that guy. I have no way of knowing, because I'm not a college scout, and he didn't play in his rookie year. But I'm not mad at Brady. I'm not mad at really even at the Patriots, because it's 20 years. When you're a fan of a team that wins 6 titles in 20 years, or 6 titles in 19 years, what? Especially growing up, it was such a loser team. I'm not mad. I ain't mad. And it's going to be different. It's going to be different rooting for the team. A lot fewer expectations, a lot just on a weekly basis, a lot less obligation probably to feel like, especially when they're, 4 and 7, I'm not going to feel like I have to watch because I do it for a living, So when they're 4 and 7, I watch them all anyway, but I won't feel like right now I'm always watching them live because I'm a fan and I want them to win the Super Bowl. And that's been the way it is for as long as I've had this stupid job, right? And now when they're 4 and 7, I'll watch it eventually, but I don't know that I'll feel obliged. Okay, so we'll do some more questions, thoughts. We have 88 people watching. I'll go through more moves as we go. Let's see. Ben says, are you surprised that the red rifle hasn't been traded yet? No. I am not surprised because he's not good. He's not bad, but he's just a total league average schlub. He's fine, but no. They're going to cut him. Let's see. Yard Dog says, he really keeps it really real. I do? Maybe it wasn't me you were talking about. Eric says, Hell or High Water is a really good film. It is. I think Josh liked it better than I did that year. I like it. I remember that. It's a couple years ago. Eric says, well, who's going to run the ball in Tampa Bay? I mean, again, I would assume that they don't have the guy yet. We'll see. It's possible that Jones is the guy. I don't think it's Ogunbowale. My guess is if you're going all in with Brady, just go all in and get someone. I thought Gurley maybe. I'm just maybe not because maybe you feel like you want a James White type, and maybe you're going to be thrilled that Ogunbowale a year in turns into that James White type. My feeling would be to go get Devontae Freeman or go draft one of the top running. Go get Dobbins or somebody. Like, go ahead and just go all out because it's a year. Maybe it's 2 years, but you should probably focus on this year because who knows. So we shall see. Okay, this is a good question that'll lead us into a new topic that I haven't talked about on the podcast. And the question is Atlanta's offensive line good? And of course, the reason we're being asked that question is because we'll talk about Todd Gurley going to the Atlanta Falcons. And what does it mean? So if you're, there's 94 of you here right now, and that's a small crowd, by the way, for this channel, but whatever, people are off doing their thing. No, they're not. They're literally home. Tell everybody to get in here. But I appreciate you. 96 now, 97. I appreciate y'all for being here. That's cool. But and frankly, this is not sponsored or anything. They're not making money. I just want to make everybody feel better a little bit. So Todd Gurley goes to Atlanta, and if you're on the YouTube channel, you've seen a couple of videos. One is a video that we did in November about the Rams offensive line in 2019 with Gurley. And then Dave Piper just did a video that posted yesterday about Todd Gurley. Was he injured? Was he bad? Was his film bad? And that was prompted by, I'm going to say it, a Roto World blurb that I texted Pat Doherty about but didn't hear back. I don't think Pat wrote it, in which they talked about the signing. They talked about what might happen in Atlanta. And the last little editorial blurb was, Gurley obviously did not have good film in 2019, period. And I'm not going to light up Roto World. They do their best. But I just doubted that the person who wrote that blurb had really watched the Todd Gurley film. So I thought, hey, Dave Piper, do you want a project? And Dave Piper, who he may be here, he may not be here, he spent 4 hours on Friday and 8 hours on Saturday watching every single Todd Gurley play coach's film. That's a lot of plays, every carry, every catch, everything. And put together a video that if you haven't watched, I encourage you. It's on the channel. I hope you will watch it. And then Dave Piper and I had a phone call yesterday in which he said, I really wanted to disagree with you that Gurley looked okay because it would make a better video. And he has total license. If he disagrees, he should say so on the thing. It's fine. And he said, damn it, he looked pretty good. So the feeling in this quarter from myself and from Mr. Piper is that Gurley was much more limited by the Rams offensive line than he was by anything else. He was getting 20 carries a game in December. And I guess you could say the Rams knew they were going to cut him, and so they just used him like a rented mule to see if they could make the playoffs. Okay. You could say Gurley himself finally convinced them that he was healthy after not being healthy earlier in the year. Okay. I don't know. He played a lot. He had a bruised thigh, right? And he came back from that in the London game. Then he had a week off. But from that point on, he had a pretty big workload. And in fact, Darrell Henderson didn't wind up getting used much at all in a way, that everybody told us, Gurley's so terrible. Look at these numbers. Clearly, Darrell Henderson's going to get a chance now. And obviously that never happened. Malcolm Brown did more earlier in the year, right? I can't sit here and tell you I know for sure what the status of Gurley's knee is. I can tell you that Gurley's haters have been doubting that knee for 5 years now, 4 or 5 years now, and sold it to you as a reason not to draft him the year before he blew up, and sold it to you as a reason not to take him the year after the year he blew up, and are going to tell you now that he's no good and you shouldn't use him. Oh my God, he's going to Atlanta. Did you hear they have turf? As though the turf they have now is like the turf they had at Riverfront Stadium 30 years ago. I can't tell you the state of Gurley's knee. I can tell you that, of course, if there was 0% question in LA's mind about Gurley's health, would they have cut him? I mean, I think probably we don't really know. They're in cap hell. They needed to dig out of a bunch of stuff to get Marcus Peters signed and to whatever. They're kind of in a tacit rebuild to some degree. But I will acknowledge there's something there. Wasn't enough for him to not get 20 snaps in 3 different games in December last year, 20 carries, that is to say. Wasn't enough for him to produce bad film, because to look back at the film is to see a dude who's still big and powerful and really fast and still has some moves. So the question was, is the Falcons' offensive line good? And my answer to that is, we never know that the year before. It wasn't good this year. Was it worse than the Rams this year? No. They were both bad. They were both bad. They were both not the worst in the league, but not good. But from year to year, things change so much with offensive lines that one massive mistake that tons of people make all summer is to guess that they know what the best and worst offensive lines are. I was told that the Cleveland Browns were good, and then I was told that they were bad. I was told the Cincinnati Bengals were terrible, and they were for a month. And then all of a sudden they started playing well, and Joe Mixon played well in the second half of the year. And the fact is, offensive lines are more than the sum of their parts, and until we see them in action in games that count, they should not be the reason you do or don't draft a running back, because they have a tendency to come together. I mean, the Patriots offensive line was rancid for 3 months, and then by the end of the year was actually really good, and they got Isaiah Wynn back, and they didn't get Brady hit in December, and that wasn't the reason they were losing games at the end. So I'm not freaked out about Atlanta's offensive line, because I don't think it was worse than the Rams last year, and I don't know what it's going to be this year. The draftability of Todd Gurley is a question that's clearly going to be a what side are you on kind of thing for 6 months now. And I can't tell you that I'm right or wrong, but I'm more on the side that I would like to have him at the right price. Let's see what the ADP winds up being. I'm not telling you that I think he's a first-round draft pick. If he's 100% healthy, he's a first-round draft pick. I love the fit. But I love the fit just because I think Matt Ryan's a good player, because Julio Jones is a great player, because a good offense, I want the running back, especially a good one. But I acknowledge that the Rams don't cut a guy outright if they don't have at least some degree of, if we could just get out of this now, maybe we should. That knee isn't awesome. We know him best. Like, there's something there. I get it. But I don't feel like he's a complete hands-off. And I know for sure you're going to hear from a lot of people that he's a complete hands-off. All right. What else do we got here? What else? Andy Dalton time, says Greg. I think we must be. That was was that the most integrated sip of water that 2020 has seen? Well, it's not water. It's possum water, vodka. Greg says, let's see the footy pajamas. I really do have a pair. They were sent to me by a listener. However, they're all the way in there. I'm not getting up. Aaron says, here comes Hooper to my beloved Browns. Seems like they way overpaid. Do you agree? I don't really get too bad out of shape about money in football because they're all overpaid, I mean, I think if you like the player, it doesn't really matter that much. It's all kind of funny money anyway. Salary cap is totally malleable. If the Rams had wanted to kick the can down the field another season, if they'd wanted to have a bunch of guys redo their contracts and keep Gurley and keep a bunch of those defensive players, they could have done it. It just makes eventually there's a piper to pay, not a Dave Piper. Eventually there is a reckoning where you can't afford everybody. But honestly, I don't know if that's even true. I think the Patriots have been doing this for so long, right? They just keep kicking the can. They never have a lot of salary cap. How are they ever going to get anybody? And then they get the guys they need on defense. So that's a long way of saying money really isn't the reason why I'd be mad or happy about Austin Hooper. He's fine. I mean, if you're gonna list the top 10 most talented pass catching tight ends in the league, would Austin Hooper be in that group? I think it's borderline. Sure. He's fine. He's a fine player. He's not really a wide receiver type, right? He's not that guy who's going to blow the top off. He's not the guy who's going to make an incredible athletic play. He's good. He's fine. Because he's in an offense where there are a lot of other weapons, he'll mostly be singled up. It'll often be a linebacker or a nickel safety, and he'll be open because he can beat that one guy, and he probably won't make a ton of big plays, but he can be kind of a reliable. I don't really think Austin Hooper's all that good, and I wouldn't be super thrilled to say, yeah, we got Austin Hooper, but he's also not a total. It's not Eric Ebron, right? When Eric Ebron signed with the Colts, murder holes, and then he had the year after that he had a big year, and I told you it wasn't real. Like, it's just, you could tell when someone isn't a good football player. Austin Hooper's fine. He's just he's okay, in my opinion. Who texted me? Another person watching texted me. Hello. Let's see. What do we got here? Renee says, Hopkins was going to hold out unless Houston restructured his contract to pay him $18 to $20 million a year, even though he still has 3 years left on it. That's a precedent that O'Brien didn't want to set. I mean, they all do that. All the elite wide receivers have the hammer, and they all do that stuff. And what are you talking about, a precedent? It's just such total nonsense. Forgive me, but this is when people take management's side in cases like this, it just sort of blindly feels like the kissing of boots, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it wouldn't be a precedent if you redid DeAndre Hopkins' deal to make it be a market level deal for one of the best receivers in the league, because the next person who comes to you isn't going to be one of the best receivers in the league. You're able to say, are you DeAndre Hopkins? Then you can't renegotiate. Besides which, you don't know what was being asked. This is Houston now this is the Texans telling the media to spin this stuff the other way. You have no idea. I think in general, we get in trouble when we start believing anything that any of these people say, that coaches leak, that players leak, that agents leak. The most important thing is, does the deal actually make sense? If you'd gotten a first-round pick and a player who wasn't coming off of 3 straight years of injury, I might go, wow, that hurts, but okay, I get it. But you're going to sit there and tell me that the best you could get for one of the best 5 receivers in the league is David Johnson not having played for 3 years and a second-round pick when Stephon Diggs goes the day later for a first-round pick. I'm just going to have to disagree with you. I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that the rest of the league considers DeAndre Hopkins poison because he might want to renegotiate his contract. Sorry. That's just my opinion. All right, let's talk about Diggs. I mentioned Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs goes to Buffalo, and people who follow my work know that I'm a big fan of Stephon Diggs. He is one of the best route runners in the league. I advocated strong for him over the summer last year, and in September that earned me a lot of anger, and a lot of people were like, I should trade him for nothing, right? And I said, I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I wouldn't trade him for nothing. And he turned out to be, I grant you, Adam Thielen got hurt, and that probably helped. But certainly once Diggs perked up from October forward, he was one of the most valuable fantasy receivers in the league. He goes to Buffalo, and suddenly Kirk Cousins never looked so good as a pass catcher, as a pass thrower, that is. But, I think we're probably making a mistake to say we know exactly what Josh Allen is. If Josh Allen's career upside is Cam Newton, he could be MVP of the league at some point without being a super accurate passer. Cam Newton has never been a super accurate passer. But having the ability that Josh Allen has and the savvy that Cam Newton had much more of coming into the league, but certainly acquired more of as he grew into his role with the Panthers, if that's Josh Allen's future, Stephon Diggs could be the #1 receiver in fantasy. It probably will never be, and I'm not predicting that. I'm saying that that's the best case, right? It probably will never be as smooth as all that. It'll never be like it's, you're just going to feel like, oh boy, week to week, Stephon Diggs can get me 170 yards and 2 touchdowns with best possible Josh Allen, but he still could also get me 5 catches for 32 yards. But enough of those formers can outweigh enough of the ladders and make for a really, really good season. Of course, I'm not going out on a limb with Josh Allen just yet. I need to see it. So if you ask me the question right now that says Kirk Cousins or Josh Allen, who would you rather have throwing passes to your wide receiver? I'm going to say Kirk Cousins, because he is not all that aggressive and his deep ball isn't all that great, but he is much more accurate in the intermediate game and timing wise. And he's done it. He's pro. Josh Allen's still learning. It's going to be year 3. Hasn't been all that good these first 2 years as a thrower. So I'm going to say situationally, you don't like Diggs as much with Allen as you do with Cousins. I think that's probably fair. I wouldn't want to remove Diggs from the wide receiver 2 conversation, but I would have to acknowledge that the wide receiver 2 conversation is maddening. Last year, there were 100 wide receiver 2s or wide receiver 3s or whatever you want to call it, the infinite sadness. It's just up and down and up and down. And maybe that's an argument that says, why reach for Stephon Diggs if people just kind of are excited about him and he's going to go with pick number 30 overall, which I have no idea what he's going to go, but that versus taking somebody, Christian Kirk, maybe not Christian Kirk, but just, somebody at pick 50 who's essentially the same level of risk reward, I would get it if you didn't want to play that game. But I'll say, you want good players. He's a good player, and there's upside for Josh Allen to be better. The mistake that you're going to make, that a lot of people are going to make, that that we know for sure that Buffalo's offense is this. They want to run the ball and play defense. Don't you know that? You're so dumb. There's enough, I'll say it, what I say every year, there's enough passing on every single team in the league to make at least one receiver on that team fantasy relevant if they're good and they have a good season. And that includes Buffalo. I mean, frankly, John Brown had a pretty good season last year, and he's not as good as Stephon Diggs. So I think Diggs is a hit, but I think it's not a death blow going to Buffalo. And then what's left behind in Minnesota, I have to imagine there's another receiver coming there. They don't have enough as a third receiver right now. As things stand at the moment, you look at Adam Thielen and you go, as the only game in town, not having to share with Stephon Diggs, that can be attractive situationally. He's also, fortunately, a very good player himself. I don't think we hold a big injury season against him from last year. I feel like talking about Thielen's stock he gets an incomplete right now because we just don't know, because I think that they're almost certainly going to have to add another wide receiver. Let's see. Diego says, Diggs and Teddy Bridgewater were nice together. With Teddy now in Carolina, is DJ Moore a good enough route runner to make similar music? I mean, what DJ Moore last year with the Cavalcade of Pooh, mostly Kyle Allen, but we'll just call him the Cavalcade of Pooh. He's not good. But I remember there for about a month, everybody told me that he was better than Cam Newton. That was interesting. To the extent that DJ Moore made music last year, he's a good enough player to make music with almost anybody at quarterback, as it turns out. I think Bridgewater is fine, but I think Bridgewater is a pretty limited player. Like, he doesn't really have enough arm to run the Newton offense. Certainly, it's going to be a brand new offense. We know that. It's that guy from LSU, Brady, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator. And I also don't want to get too deep in the weeds with projecting out, what Teddy Bridgewater looks like for years and years, or even this year, when we don't know yet whether the Panthers have done something to get a quarterback. They gave Bridgewater a contract that he's going to be on the team, but I wouldn't necessarily view Teddy Bridgewater as my long-term let's win the Super Bowl kind of plan. Like they're in probably pretty significant rebuild mode. In the NFL, that means something different than a lot of other sports. It's not like you can't go 10-6 accidentally. In the NFL, you can. If you catch lightning in a bottle, you absolutely can. I would be looking for a quarterback, and so I'm not really going to, in my mind, hitch DJ Moore to Teddy Bridgewater, even for 2020 just yet. I think Moore rightfully belongs to the big, ugly group of we don't know at wide receiver. And it's weird, like it's going to be a whole summer of having gone through a whole season of having no receivers be reliable from week to week, and then have all these experts and all these Twitter feeds and all these YouTube channels and all these podcasts where people are going, no, I know that it's going to be DK Metcalf. He's the one. No. I know that it's going to be DJ Moore. No. I know that it's going to be Will Fuller. When probably the answer is going to be none of them. That are going to be they're all going to be useful. They're all going to be kind of the same. They're all going to fluctuate from week to week and not be all that fun to predict. And what we're maybe really looking for are, just lucking into accidentally, like all of a sudden the Chiefs offense from 2 years ago goes from pretty good to, whoa, right? We're looking for the next whoa. And I don't think Carolina is going to be the next whoa with Teddy Bridgewater, which doesn't mean that DJ Moore can't have a perfectly valid fantasy season. Ace says, Christopher Harris, what is going down? I know. Where's Sharon Mitchell? Where is he? Let's see. I see Renee on here telling us because it was reported. Renee, I appreciate you being here, pal, but either you're just going to believe everything you read or you're not. If you want everybody in the room to list all the other things that were reported that turned out to be not true, including the fact that Brian Hoyer's agent this morning said that Brian Hoyer was signed to be the starter of the Patriots. What was it? It was Mike Clay, my friend from ESPN, tweeted out that he had been told point blank by Carolina's coaching staff at the Combine that Cam Newton would be their quarterback next year. They don't have any incentive to tell you the truth. And when they make a trade afterwards and get pilloried for it and then tell reporters, hey man, he was holding out and he wanted like they're trying to cover their butt. You don't know that that's true. We just have a fundamental, it's okay. I don't have any hate in my heart for this perspective, but we don't have any common ground when your argument is going to be, I read it in a newspaper. That's just not, there are a lot of people in this room who adhere to the same theory that we just don't believe it. Coaches lie, teams lie, agents lie. Usually players are the ones who don't lie unless they're kind of doing the post-game, played well, tough team, good D. Like they're the ones who usually tell the truth. But it's okay. We have different perspectives on it. That's great. Yuri, I like this question, Yuri. Let's ask this one. I haven't talked about it yet, and we haven't talked about it because it's happened this week. Melvin Gordon leaves behind Austin Eckler as the starting running back, I guess, in Los Angeles, here in the glorious, gloomy city of angels. Should I show you Los Angeles again? Hey, look, it's LA. Look. Yeah. This yacht is tall. We're towering above these buildings. So your question was about Eckler. I'll also talk about Melvin Gordon, and this is something that I will talk about on the podcast as well. But is Austin Eckler a first-round fantasy pick? We did talk about that on the show. No. Austin Eckler's a fine little player. He's good. It's a great story. I don't want to be a hater of Austin Eckler, but he is not a fantasy first-round pick. Could he have, he's not the player Christian McCaffrey is, but that's what everybody's going to compare him to, right? Like undersized guy, blood and guts, really good pass catcher. Why can't if the Chargers are going to be a bad team, why can't he just have a million touches and do what McCaffrey did last year? And listen, I guess that's on the table. That's his ceiling, that the Chargers just go, LOL, this season is lost. We have Tyrod Taylor as our quarterback. We're just going to beat the crap out – I almost said a bad word – beat the crap out of Austin Eckler and give him 25 touches a game, and who cares? I hope the Panthers stop doing that with Christian McCaffrey. I've been wrong on McCaffrey's fantasy value to this point, but I don't think I've been wrong on how you use McCaffrey to keep him alive. I think the Panthers have been crazy. I think the previous coaching staff was crazy to use McCaffrey like they did. My fondest hope for McCaffrey is the Panthers get someone else. Good Lord. He can still touch it 16 times a game and be fantastic for everybody in the world. He's a really, really good player. And I would say the same thing about Austin Eckler. They didn't give Eckler superstar money, but they gave him, they gave him money to indicate that he's part of their future. He's part of their plans. When they rebuild, they want him to be on the field, right? They want him to be there. He's not the dude you want carrying it between the tackles. He's not the dude you want touching it 20 times a game. He is going to die. So no, if Eckler's going to be his ADP is going to be a first-round pick, people are just going to have at it. I would hope the Chargers would add someone else. I think Justin Jackson is fine, but he strikes me as Eckler-ish, another littler guy, sort of another jack of all, master of none kind of player. As far as Melvin Gordon to the Broncos, we don't know much, right? But first of all, I think what it tells us if both Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman are staying, it tells us the Royce Freeman pick. What do we need to know about the Royce Freeman pick? I think we pretty much got what we need to know about the Royce Freeman pick. They are acknowledging it wasn't all that good of a pick, and he is a little bit sluggish. He is a little bit Eddie Lacy-ish, as we might say. So for the moment, just for the purpose of this conversation, which might be wrong, I'll kind of put Royce Freeman on a shelf, and we'll talk about the Lindsay-Melvin Gordon dynamic. It's funny because Philip Lindsay profiles to be this satellite Austin Eckler kind of back, right? He profiles as, cool, we'll let Melvin Gordon handle a lot of the dynamic stuff between the tackles and end-around stuff and, man block scheme type stuff, and let Philip Lindsay kind of be the change of pace and zone blocking guy and screen it to him a million times. And it's not how the Broncos have used Lindsay to this point. He hasn't really been used massively as a receiver. To be fair, though, they haven't thrown that much to running backs. So we'll see. We'll see if that winds up being the arrangement, if it becomes a Gordon. Let's face it. For all of Austin Eckler putting up massive numbers in that holdout period of Melvin Gordon, right? And then continuing to put up numbers even when Gordon was there. If you go back and watch what it looked like was Austin Eckler not doing all that much and then making a huge play, one a week, every week. And actually that was happening even when he was getting 7 touches a game once Gordon was back. It was insane. It was great. Better than the alternative, but hard to imagine that it continues. My feeling would be, I look at what the Chargers thought of those two players once Melvin Gordon was back, and everybody said, let's face it, there's just a lot of people who hate Melvin Gordon. They just hate him. There's for whatever irrational reason, he had low yards per carry first couple of years, and everybody decided he's bad. And that's the end of the story of Melvin Gordon. And the Chargers, and therefore they thought when Gordon came back, man, is Gordon even going to play? This is certainly at least a committee, and I prefer Eckler over Gordon. And I was standing over here feeling like I'd taken crazy pills. And my feeling was Melvin Gordon's a complete running back and really, really good and powerful and fast and strong. And Austin Eckler is very, very quick and pretty strong for his size and a good receiver, but much more of a satellite sort of back. And the Chargers told you exactly what they think, that Gordon reclaimed the starting job. He was the lead back. He was a lead back insofar as there is such a thing in the NFL anymore. He was the lead back once he came back last year. And will the Broncos feel that way? It's a less clear delineation of responsibilities because Philip Lindsay's never really been the satellite back. But Philip Lindsay is a littler guy than Austin Eckler, but he's a more powerful runner than Austin Eckler. He's a strong dude for his size. He's been much more the between the tackles guy. And I don't know how that jibes exactly, except to say that when you have a tiny little Philip Lindsay, getting another running back makes sense to make the tiny little Philip Lindsay's career last for 7 or 8 years as opposed to 2 or 3. And I'm not saying you have to sign Melvin Gordon because that sort of throws the whole. So I don't want the Panthers to sign Melvin Gordon because that throws way too much of McCaffrey's workload into doubt, but someone, right? And so the Broncos have done someone. I would prefer Gordon to Philip Lindsay, but I like Lindsay as a player, and I don't really know how it's going to work out. Yeah. Interesting. Let's see. Trying to find more questions here other than Renee continuing to go on and on. Renee, you're not that familiar with my work, pal. It's very clear. You should listen to the podcast. You might like it. Josh says, thoughts on Hayden Hurst in Atlanta. He's the fastest tight end Ryan has ever played with, I think, and seems ready for starter targets. I think that Hayden Hurst is probably just as good as Austin Hooper. Like, I think probably fine. I think Mark Andrews is like that half a step better than those guys in that he can play a little bit more of that slot receiver, seam route, post route, almost like a third wide receiver kind of player. I don't want to go so crazy as to say like Mark Andrews is OJ Howard. Like I don't think that's true. And OJ Howard's another entire story we didn't even talk about with Brady. We talked about it on the podcast, but I can't see a reason why Hayden Hurst couldn't do what Austin Hooper did, because I think Austin Hooper mostly just kind of caught what was thrown its way 7 yards down the field. And, I've always said on the show over and over, that Matt Ryan is a little bit of an android as a quarterback, that I think defenses can manipulate him into throwing to the receiver they want him to throw to. He's the guy who always throws away from the double team. That's not true. It's not always. But it feels like when you watch film on Matt Ryan, you're regularly, don't say always, you're regularly seeing him check down. Or I don't even know if I want to say check down, but like go where the path of least resistance. And that's good because he's great at seeing it. He's a super, super quick processor for information. He's got a great big arm. He's a very good player. But if we've had frustrations with Julio over the years, they've popped up a couple of times over the past couple of years, and then fortunately in the second halves of years, been eradicated, thankfully. It's been that he'll go to Austin Hooper. He'll be like, cool, I'll take the free money, and he'll go to Austin Hooper. But in that regard, if that's still the offense, and we don't know if that's still the offense. Todd Gurley's there, like we don't know, but I think Hayden Hurst can be that guy. I don't think I look at Hayden Hurst. I never did. I never understood him as a draft pick where he went. I never looked at him and said, burner, like, watch out, going to take the top off of defense. I think he's like kind of fine. He's a fine, good player, big guy, runs pretty well for his size. Yeah. Matt says, do you have an update on your next book? Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. The book is done and supposed to come out in the fall, but we'll see with all this stuff. Also, it's the subject matter. I don't think it's necessarily like invalidated by what's going on in the world right now. But yeah, it's like a little weird that it won't be mentioned. Like this is clearly taking place in a world pre-quarantine, pre-social distancing. But I guess that's going to be the case with a lot of books that were written in the year leading up to this crazy event. So maybe that's going to be okay. I guess it's still going to come out in August, September, but I probably know more about that over the summer, I guess. Nick says, with the league going to 17 playoffs, is there more scope for week 17 games counting for fantasy? I don't think so. I think we're going to hear a lot about that because people need something to talk about, but I think not. I think, if anything, when there are extra regular season games, we'll still leave out the last week. And if that means we can keep everything the same, but play a final where it's a 2-week final and you can change your lineup in between the 2 weeks. That almost feels like the best resolution to me. You're still going to have teams who don't have anything to play for, and they're going to be players on the best teams. If there had been an extra playoff team this year, Baltimore still would have rested their guys week 17. So I think fantasy that last week is dead, is dead no matter what, because you'll never have everyone with something to play for that last week. All right, we've done this for an hour. I've yammered for an hour, so I haven't played much guitar during this whole thing. Oh, yeah, baby. This was fun. This was fun to do with all of you for an hour. I hope you enjoyed it. We got maxed out at 120 people or something like that. That was cool. It was fun to not think about what's going on in the world for a little while. I hope everybody's practicing some social distancing. I don't remember any songs. How do you play songs? Does anybody know how to play songs? I missed. I missed again. Thanks, J-Dog, for finishing Tulsa this week. Play some Skinner, man! Play some Skinner! I seem like I play the same songs. How do you play the solo part? Let's see. That's the part where I have to sing, and I'm not going to sing. Feeney says, I once submitted a Pearl Jam mixtape about Kareem Hunt. Did I play it? James says, glad you are not here, LOL. Could you play some Harris Snarkbag Baby? I think I know that song, don't I? How do you play that song? I forget. Oh, yeah. And then it's... Is that how it goes? Snarkbag Baby. Daytime lady. tag song, kind of. I kind of remembered how to play it. I kind of. Diego says, maybe you could sell your soul like Robert Johnson to learn more songs. What do I know songs. I know a lot of songs. I haven't played guitar lately. Eagles. Everybody hates the Eagles. Blah 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 blah. I forgot. No, I forgot how to play. Blah blah blah. It's like I always say. How about? Oh, I know this one. How does it go? There goes my. She gives me cool. She gives me cool sweat. I gotta be cool. Freddie rolling in his grave, says Eric. The Celine says, oh no, that's not for me. Glenn Fry is dying all over again. Yeah, that was for sure. I think I did better with Freddie than I did with Glenn Fry. It was not good. I don't think this was Glenn Fry, but how does this go? Nope. I forgot it. I got 2 chords in. I forgot it already. It's crazy. So bad. I should really remember songs before I come on this thing. I apologize for my lack of guitaring, but I hope you had fun. I played guitar. I just wasn't what you'd call, I don't know, good. But yeah, you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What other songs do I know how to play? How about this is not. I don't even like the song. Go on. All we need. Candlelight with me. Bottle of wine. Way how I wish the world was so take this fine. Yeah. You've played I Want to Hold Your Hand, La Bamba, Tyler by Toadies. Diego says the Peyton Barber of guitar playing. I am totally replacement level guitar player. A deep cut Do I know any Metallica? I think I do. Hold on. I have to remind myself. How does it go? Maybe I don't. It's possible that I don't. Almost. Yeah, I'm getting it. I'm getting it. This is so embarrassing to do this live. It's so embarrassing. I don't know how to play the song. It goes like. Oh my God. They're not even dead and they're rolling in their graves. That's all I got. That's all that song is, to be honest. Except for the solo. Go ahead. Other requests? I'm terrible. I can try to name a band. I can try. That tasted a lot like possum water vodka. How about... Oh, I know a good one. Did I ever play this one for you guys before? Turn around, see my reflection in a snow-covered hill. Landslide brought it down. Here in the sky, what is love? The storm within my heart, rise above. Breathe through the changing. I'm not trying to sing well. It's wanting people to understand it. Of my life. I've been afraid of changing 'cause I built my life around it. Children get older, I'm getting older. Solo. It's pretty good. I remember that. I need a little praise. All right, Eric's holding a lighter up. I like it. that was pretty good that I got the solo. You have to admit. I got a thumbs up from Feeny Fighter. I appreciate that. Let's see, what else? This is easy. Except I won't remember it. That was all right, right? That was all right. I remembered that I knew that song. All right. I think probably that looks like a yacht. Like, look at Richard says that looks like a building, not a yacht. It's a very, very tricky yacht. It really is a tricky yacht. Sweet Child of Mine. Do I know? I used to know Sweet Child of Mine. I certainly can't do that little twaddle right at the beginning. How do you play that? I can't. I used to know how to do it. It's like up here. Nah, there's no way. It's this. Fuck. That's a bad word. I know the chords though. All right, kids. This was fun. I mean, I don't think... how many people are still here? This can't be very many people. 52 people. All right, well, 52 people. Do you want me to keep playing guitar? If you want me to stop, I'll stop. If you want me to keep going, humiliating myself for your enjoyment here, I don't mind. Peter says keep going. But Peter, we know each other in real life, so you humiliate me like whenever we see each other. Beatles. I'm sure I know some Beatles. Well, I know Blackbird. I've played Blackbird for you before, right? Sean says, "Can you give me some guitar lessons when this is over?" I think I know other Beatles though. I know. Oh boy. I don't know how to play that song. Yeah, I thought I knew how to play Get Back. I don't know how to play Get Back, unfortunately. Taxman, I don't think I have in my repertoire. Do I know any Eric Clapton? I mean, it's all obviously I can't play anything. It would all be chords. I can't play any of the lead stuff because it's crazy hard. But I think I did at one point know some Eric Clapton, didn't I? Thought I did. Did I? Did I though? Did I? I mean, this is basically Clapton. I mean, it's Steve Ray Vaughan, but they're doing a lot of the same things. My fingers hurt. So I haven't played. I should have been playing more. I've been writing. I should have been playing more. Alice in Chains. I don't have any Alice in Chains. I'm trying to think of what things people know. Like, I know a lot of songs you won't know. What's the point, right? Like, I can do Buffalo Tom songs. Anybody out there really, really want to hear a Buffalo Tom song? I got it for you. But these are steel. These are steel strings. Lindsay wants Grateful Dead. I don't have a lot of Grateful Dead in my repertoire either. How about James says yes to Buffalo Tom. All right. It goes. I think I need a capo. I think I need a capo though. It goes. And then. Yeah. James, you got it. Yeah. Yeah. Buffalo Tom. Your fingers, our ears. Doobie Brothers. Oh Blackwater. I don't have any Doobie Brothers in my repertoire either. How about I haven't played that song in a long time. I don't think I need a keyboard for this one. The first time I was afraid, I was petrified. Live without you by my side. At first I was petrified. Diego wants me to play "Oh Fat Eddie Bambalam." I don't have that. I do not have that. Well, I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. I'll keep playing if it's helping you enjoy your evening. That makes me happy. At least a couple people said they were in the comments, and I appreciate that. I'm keeping an eye on the comments. Let's see. What do we know how to play, though? Oh, this is like the first song I ever learned. Don't go out tonight. Take your life. Oh yeah. Let's find a mediocre guitar player and request songs he doesn't know how to play. I learned like 100 Crowded House songs like 15 years ago. I don't remember any of them. How about, I think I did this one for you. a boomer song, soccer. That's a Gen X song. That actually even might be a millennial, like young millennial, like when you were really young. How about I see, recognize face, haunting, yes, I seem to place, cannot find, can't thought, night, your way, lifetimes catching up, me. Does anybody know what that song was? Does anybody know what that song was? Or am I coughing up the wrong something? What's that song? I'm asking you right now. There's a little bit of a delay. Pearl Jam. Oh, Matt already said it. It's the incel song. I don't think it's the incel song. Matt got it right. Pearl Jam. Elderly woman behind a counter in a small town, right? Something like that. No Rain. I think I knew it. Let me just look it up real quick. See, did I ever know it? See if it comes back to me. I don't remember this part. Oh, fuck. Pardon my French. remember the riff very well, but I remember the chords okay. Play Galladay. I don't think I have Galladay. Smile with the rising sun. Three little birds sit on my doorstep, singing sweet songs. It's pure and true. This is my message to you. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Oh, so don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. I know that song. What's that song? Chord game, not that strong there. What else you got? What else you got? Don't Go Back to Rockville. Do I know that one? I should. It's not hard. Let me see if I can look it up. I don't think I have that one. I should be able to figure that one out. Watch I gotta scroll. I don't know this part. I think go. Wait. I didn't know how to play it, obviously. Another year. I tried. I'm sorry that wasn't the best. I'm sorry. Let me get back to the right screen. I tried. What about the Battlefield, the video games theme song? We are now far out of Gen X. I do not know that. Wow, my hair got crazy. I tried with the Don't Go Back to Rockville. Akeem says, Harris, you're back. I haven't been anywhere. What are you talking about? Any thoughts on the Pats quarterback next year and Cam Newton? I mean, we talked about that a little bit already. I don't really have any thoughts. We'll see. I don't expect any of the options that are available to the Patriots to lead them to anything resembling a title, so I don't really care that much, to be honest. Feels like it was a fun run, and I can take a break from expecting Super Bowls for a while. The Newton thing all comes down to how healthy he is, and he hasn't been able to engineer a trade, so he hasn't been that healthy. Do you guys want me to keep going? How many people are in here? 43. We're down to 43. The Celine says this beats the Hallmark Channel and it's Marathon Christmas movie weekend. Well, that's damning with really great praise. I forget how to play that song. I should remember. It's a fun song to play. Did you like that song? All right, that's probably enough. My fingers do actually hurt. This was fun. That's an hour and 45 minutes. Holy cow. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you listen. Be safe, all right? Don't do anything stupid. Let's just all stay inside. And if you need something to keep you occupied, you could just watch this back and watch all the great songs I played on guitar. Or you could have the memory of me struggling on guitar, and that could keep you warm at night. That would be fun, too. I'm glad there was some appetite to come hang out. That was fun. It was fun for me. I'm going to go eat some dinner. I think, it's hard because people don't think of this channel or what I do when it's not August, right? So it's hard for me to really rally a huge crowd. But, we're talking about doing something else on the channel here coming up, maybe something for charity. And I don't know how many people would come to that, but I'll keep you posted. Follow me on football follow me on Twitter at Harris Football, or on Facebook or wherever, and follow for more information. I'm trying to figure out what that thing might look like. Maybe some sort of like limited, not just me bringing guests and do it on the YouTube show live and see how that works. Just for the purposes of maybe donating some money to a good cause, because there are going to be people who are suffering and people out of work and all that stuff. So we'll give that a shot. I'll keep you posted. Again, at Harris Football. Thank you very much. It was fun. It was a fun Sunday evening. And I will try to go get better at guitar. And we'll see you later.